Good morning. I'm not sure what I'm doing up here, but I'll try to get through this. The metropolis of Werner is not a quarter of this size. We might take this section over here, and that would be about what we have in our little church. But God has blessed us. He's also given us some storms. There was a book that went up there, about the storms, and then there was a song that we sang about the storms. How many of you have been through storms? And don't tell me you've never been, because I've been here before, and I've been here when there was a storm. And it looks similar to the one that we just got out of. And if you're wondering where I am at this morning, in my message is coming out of that storm and obeying God to all that He has given us to obey. And because of obedience in following Him, we can be sure that what we do is going to be blessed because of obedience. There's always a time of waiting and then moving when God speaks to us. And this is what our church is going through. So Glenn is going to learn a whole new way of doing church this morning, because it's not the normal place to be, because they are just coming out of that storm and coming into where we are being able to be blessed. Now, I chose this passage here this morning because the title of my lesson is Take Courage. God is with us. And because He is, it brought me to Daniel and these three guys. I don't pronounce those names as he does. I pronounce them Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Like the French way, probably. I'm not quite sure, but it is what it is. So if I'm saying it a little bit different, don't worry about it. We'll get there all together. So I just want to go back and see how come these guys were chosen and where they came from. They were the children of Israel, and they were overtaken by Nebuchadnezzar. And of course, if you're overtaken by Nebuchadnezzar, you're stuck there, because there's no place else to go, because Nebuchadnezzar is the one. In Daniel 1, 3, and 4, they were chosen by Aspenaz, the master of his eunuchs, that he should bring certain of the children of Israel and of the king's seed and the princes. If we read verse 4, it tells us that children of whom was no blemish, but well favored and skillful in all wisdom, and coming in knowledge and understanding, science, and such as had ability in them to stand in the king's palace, and whom they might teach the learning and the tongue of the Chaldeans. Now, they had to be a specific kind of people. Nebuchadnezzar didn't choose just anybody. So we come back to chapter 3 and 13, where Nebuchadnezzar, in his rage, and I'm trying to cut it down because I'm used to an hour and a quarter of preaching, so I'm trying to cut this down for you. So he came in with his fury and in his fury, commanded to bring Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego to him, because somebody tattled on them. They said they didn't bow down when it was time to bow down. How many have tattled on you? I can't do anything. I can't even do anything at home because we're so small. Everybody knows each other. Everybody knows each other's business. And so when I do something at home, like going out to my shed at the back of the other shed so I can hide myself, they all know where I am. They all know where to find me. And so there's no place to hide. There's no place to go. It's there. So everybody sees what I do. So it makes you very transparent. And so because of that, we sometimes don't know where to hide. We tried to take some holidays last year, and that didn't even work. They found us, and then we were stuck going back to work a little bit early because there's not many people. So you have to have, if you want to be non-transparent, you have to go and hide yourself. And you need to get yourself away from all that is there. And so this year we're attempting to go a little further, and where my phone doesn't work and everything else. So, but we see that Nebuchadnezzar had people everywhere. Everybody was watching. And because of his pride, he was a proud man, and the kind that his pride made him very dangerous. His pride made him to be that kind of a leader that you did not go against, because there was consequences. And so the story goes on, and I'm just trying to find myself in my notes, and my mouth is all dry because I left my bottle of water over there, so that's her cue to get me my bottle of water. Thank you. I hope that's okay there. Okay, thank you. We all know that Nebuchadnezzar loved to show off his power, and his power made him ruthless and very dangerous. So in verse 14, the king spoke and said unto the three men, Is it true that you do not respect my gods, nor worship my golden image, which I have set before you? The king continued to say, if you are ready and you bow down to them when the music starts, all will be well for you. But take my word for this, if you don't bow down, then the same hour you will be thrown into the midst of a fiery furnace. Now, can you imagine that furnace? You know that when you take a piece of wood and you go beside the stove, we have a little cottage in the bush somewhere, and we make fires. And when you get too close to that fire, when it's going really good, you try to throw something else. I mean, you feel the hair curling up on your hands because your hands went too close. Well, this fire was 7 times hotter than it should have been because the king requested it. Now, and so when they took these men and they threw them in, even the guards died. Now remember that those guards were not weaklings. They were the strongest, the best that the king had. He was not going to play the fool with this. He wanted to have success at this because he was against their God. And we'll see why. And then he said, if you don't, you're going to be thrown in that furnace. And then he mocked their God. Who is this God that shall deliver you out of my hands? Do you not know what kind of power I have? You know, I was a lone ranger for the longest time in our church because we didn't start this big. We didn't start this big. We were 6 of us when we started. And I had elderlies. You know what it is to work with elderlies? Now I'm the elderly. But before it was them that were the elderlies. And so when anything had to be done, they would pick on me. Well, you're the youngest brother. You can do it. And we will just cheer you on. Because they couldn't work. In any case, they still can't work. But we've got a new generation that came in and are able to work, and they don't want me to do nothing. Not good for me. Because I'm a workaholic. I like to do things. But don't you know the kind of power that seems to put into your hands? Because you're the loner, because you are the one that they have taken on to be their pastor. Well, he does everything. Nobody else needs to do anything. So the pastor thinks, whatever I say goes, because that's what I do. And so Nebuchadnezzar was in that kind of a place. Well, there's nobody else but me. I am the king. This is my place. I have built it, and I have done a good job at it. And he must have, because he chose the right kind of people to work for him. And that's a different style than we have at church, because we can't choose our people. They come to us as God gives them to us. And then we have to adapt to them and learn to work with them in order for them to make the church prosper. And so things are a little bit different. And this is the transition that I'm going through, is learning to let go and let God do the work in the people. And that this is not all about me, but it's a good analysis about where Nebuchadnezzar was. And so I just love what these three men said in verse 16. They said to the king, "O King Nebuchadnezzar, we are not afraid to answer you on this matter." How many of you, if the pastor took you to task, you might not be afraid to speak to him? In my church, it was so. So I found out, because of that kind of authority that I felt I had. Because I could not, I was doing everything, so you do what I say. And that was hard. It was hard on us. And why I spoke on the book, The Storm, and the song that came up, is because last week I went to the conference in Muskoka, and I had to prepare my heart before I went there. Lord, make me to be able to receive, rather than to complain about everything that was said. And I'm telling you that did a number on my life that particular week. That I just came back from there 2 days. And God has blessed me because I have been able to sit there and just take it in. Take it in. Let it work out. Don't think that you have all the answers. Take it in. Be blessed by this. And I took a room where I was totally alone. And that way I could meditate on whatever was given to me at that time. I didn't even bring my word puzzle. Do you know that they get to be addictive? Yeah. And so I didn't even take that. I wanted to receive of the word. And God has blessed. Now, that furnace was so hot that if we were to go in there, we would not last very long. In any case, after a short while, King Nebuchadnezzar decided that he was going to sit back and just look in to see if he saw any of these creatures that he had thrown in. And he did not see anybody there except 4 men. See? 4 men. They were still standing, and none. All of a sudden he says, how come there's 4? Can you imagine 4 people when you have thrown 3 in? And he was made to realize that the 4th person that he was looking at, he looked like in the King James version, only version that we Baptists use. This is a joke. And the form of the 4th is like the Son of God. And that made me realize, that when we see something that God is trying to show us, we had better realize what we are looking at. And King Nebuchadnezzar was able to do that. He was made to see. His eyes were open so that he would see that God that he had just finished mocking with those 3 men. He noticed that the 4th one looked like the Son of God, or as the reader said, the sons of gods, a small g. Now, If you were thrown in that furnace and you were able to come out, what would you think you would have experienced? Would you be up there and jumping up and down and being happy that, this was a great thing that happened? I don't know how they felt. I don't know how they would just come in and take it all in and be sure that, that this was God that did this. But I think because of the way they were committed at the beginning, when they said, we're not afraid, King, because whether we are saved by him or we are saved through him or by him in another way, taken away from you, we're not subject to you. We are subject to God, the Almighty, and we know that he is going to save us from you. And that kind of a saying means to me, can you imagine the commitment that these three guys had? Now, they weren't alone. There was another one in with them. And at the beginning, they made sure that they were, they had made a resolution that they were not going to, what is the word? Defile themselves with the food that the king had given them. And we as Christians sometimes are not set in our mind that this is where we're going to be. This is what we are going to have. And we're not going to get that from our God. But yet, when we take time to wait and to be able to hear him speak to us and to be able to receive from him, then can the Lord work in through us. Then can he make us to make that kind of a commitment that I know that my God is going to carry me through. That he, because of his, what he has given to us, we will stand for him. What we have been through in our church in the last year has brought me to a different standing in my church, because I've had to totally trust in my God that he was able to take us from what seemed to be impossible for us to do. He took us through, and with no lies, God has taken us through. And all those of the accusers were taken out. That hurts, when you're that big of a church. That hurts when people start walking out because they disagree. But it also makes the church to be able to pick up and to start worshiping God for who he is and what he has done in our lives, the changes that he has brought around, and has made us to be able to be like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that we are committed to this God. And because we are committed to this God, we will be what we need to be in his place. My thoughts this morning were not to spill out all my guts on you and tell you all the problems I have had, because as big as those problems were, my God is greater. My God is greater. Some of those songs that we sang this morning, I could sing wholeheartedly because I have experienced it, and my family has experienced it, and we have been able to walk through all of this and still hold our heads straight and say, my God is greater. Because my God has taken us from where we were and has blessed us with a better understanding, a better way of leading, because all of that discord that we were about was the changes that we were trying to bring into our church. You had a worship team this morning? Well, we have a worship team, but our worship team cost us. because our worship team started to make some changes in the way we worship, in the way we sing songs. And when we first tackled this, we did not know that we would empty the church. We had one old lady, 82, and she says, "Pastor, you don't know what you're asking. I wanted to go higher. I wanted to be at another level." I said, "There is more to life than just being monitored or monetary, or just low key." I said, "There's got to be more. Life has much more to give." Now I know I'm talking to an older audience, and then probably your feelings are like the feelings we had, but it wasn't the older ones that left. It was some of the younger ones. And so we had to set back up. But through this, God has blessed and has brought us to a different level. But that old lady had told me, "You're going to find yourself alone if you keep doing this." And praise God, it has mellowed down, or brought down, excuse me. And my thought is, take courage. God is with us. If God was not with us, I would turn this thing around right away. But because God is with us, then we can go ahead. I just want to end up with some verses that I took, and I didn't. The guy back there loves me this morning because he didn't have to wait for my cue to put up the verses. I didn't have any there, but I do have some here, but I didn't give them to him, so you're just going to have to go with me. Exodus 23:4. "Thou shalt have no other gods before thee," and that starts with what Nebuchadnezzar was doing. He was bringing in some other gods, and so this verse goes with that. "Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image." Everything that Nebuchadnezzar did. If we obey God's commandment, we can say like these men, "If God be for us, who can be against us?" Romans 8:31. Have confidence in God and take courage. I don't know if you need to be encouraged. I needed to be encouraged, so this is the message that you got. This is my encouragement lesson to me. Deuteronomy 31:6 says, "Be strong and of good courage. Fear not, nor be afraid of them. For the Lord thy God, he it is that doth go with thee. He will not fail thee nor forsake thee." And we have experienced that. It's been hard. It's been very difficult for us to be able to continue at times, because when Satan hits, he hits you at your lowest points, and he just likes to destroy everything that is there and everything that seems right. But if you are right in God's eyes rather than yours, everything will work out because he is there with you. And verse 27 of Psalms 27:17. "Wait on the Lord, be of good courage, and he shall strengthen thine heart. Wait, I say, unto the Lord." Now, there are two or three other characters that I had looked at as well, and that was Joseph. And Joseph, you know that when he was in the pit, where was God? God was in the pit with him. When Joseph was thrown into jail, where was God? God was in the prison with Joseph. When Joseph was tempted, where was God? He was in Joseph's heart, because he was not allowed to fall for this woman. And then we get Daniel, and he was part of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. I'm not going to try and say his given name, but Daniel. He was the one that was thrown in the lion's den, and he stood up to the king again, and he was able to look at this king and say, "I am not doing what you ask." Now, Daniel was thrown in the lion's den. The king did not really like to put him there, because he knew that God that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were worshiping. He knew that this God. But he was still the king, and he was still stubborn, and he was still proud, and he still had to learn some things. But Daniel was thrown in the lion's den. Where was God? He was there with him. He was protecting him. And so this is what I see in here. When you're in a storm, when you're struggling with other people, God will take you and protect you. And he will continue to be with you. Take courage, for God is with us. This is my lesson for this morning. Thank you.